They showed up at my door with badges, flashing voices firm, telling me I was under arrest for violating HOA regulations. I remember the sunlight bouncing off their fake shields, the tremble in their voices, the way they really thought they had power over me. What they didn't know, what Karen didn't know, was that I'm a U.S. Marshal, and she'd just tried to arrest the wrong damn guy. But let me back up, because the story didn't start with fake cops, it started with paper. Letters. Petty, ridiculous letters that smelled like printer ink and arrogance. The first one came in a crisp envelope stamped with gold letters, Oak Ridge Estates, Homeowners Association. Inside it said, I was required to register my property, pay monthly dues, and comply with community standards. Required. That word made me laugh out loud. I bought this house precisely because it wasn't under an HOA. I wanted peace, privacy, no one telling me what color to paint my door. But Karen Whitmore, she had other plans. She was the HOA president, or maybe self-proclaimed dictator. The type of woman who lived for rules, thrived on control. The kind of person who'd remind you about your trash cans being out 5 minutes too long, even if hers were still sitting on the curb. When I met her the first time, she was wearing a blazer in 90-degree heat and holding a clipboard like it was a sword. She smiled at me, tight, fake, rehearsed, and said, "Welcome to the neighborhood. We expect all homeowners to do their part." I told her politely that my house wasn't under her HOA. She blinked once, forced another smile, and said, "Well, Oak Ridge has standards for everyone nearby. I'm sure you understand." Oh, I understood perfectly. Karen was the kind of person who didn't stop when you told her no, she just found another angle. Within a week, the letters multiplied. $250 for failure to maintain property aesthetics, $150 for noise violations, $200 for not submitting a landscaping plan. I didn't even know that was a thing. My yard was spotless. My grass trimmed, my driveway clean. I ignored her notices, tossed them in the trash. But Karen wasn't the type to take silence as an answer. A few days later, I walked outside and found her standing in my driveway, clipboard in hand, pretending to read something important. She didn't even flinch when I caught her staring at me. "Oh, good," she said, flashing that fake smile. "I was hoping to catch you." "Something you need, Karen?" I asked. She pulled a paper from her stack and held it out like it was a subpoena. "You have outstanding violations. I wanted to remind you personally." I barely looked at it. "Karen, I'm not part of your HOA. You have zero authority over my property." Her tone didn't change, but her jaw tightened. "Oak Ridge Estates expects cooperation. It's only fair to everyone." "Fair," I laughed. "What's fair is me not having to deal with this nonsense." For a second the mask slipped. Her eyes hardened. Then she smoothed it over, adjusted her blazer, and said, "Well, I do hope you reconsider. You wouldn't want to make things difficult for yourself." "Was that a threat?" I asked. "Of course not," she said sweetly. "Just a friendly reminder." I leaned forward and dropped my voice. "Here's my friendly reminder. Leave me alone. You put one more fake violation in my mailbox, I'll file a harassment complaint." She turned on her heel and walked away, her heels clicking down my driveway. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. The next morning I found garbage dumped on my lawn. A week later my mailbox was smashed. Neighbors started whispering when I passed by. One day at the gas station, an old guy named Jim shook his head and said, "Hope you get things sorted out. Karen's been saying you've got legal trouble. Something about a warrant." A warrant. That was new. Sure enough, the next day a letter showed up. Final notice. Inside was an official statement from the Oak Ridge HOA Legal Department. It claimed a warrant had been issued for my arrest due to failure to comply with community guidelines. Signed by, get this, Karen Whitmore, HOA president. I couldn't help but laugh. Karen had gone from neighborhood bully to delusional tyrant. But the more I looked at that fake document, the more I realized something this wasn't going to stop. She was escalating, pushing boundaries. So I decided to stop reacting. I'd let her dig her own hole. The next morning, another warning notice was taped to my door. Then another. Then two more. And on Friday morning, I stepped outside and found two men waiting in my driveway. They wore matching navy shirts, belts with cheap plastic badges, and expressions that said they thought they were tough. "Are you the homeowner?" one of them asked. "Who's asking?" I said, crossing my arms. "We're with the Homeowners Association Enforcement Division," the taller one said, straightening his shoulders. "We're here regarding your outstanding violations." I stared. "The what?" "The HOA Enforcement Division," he repeated. "You've failed to comply with community regulations. We have an active warrant for your arrest." I nearly laughed. "Is that so?" "Yes," the shorter one said. "You'll need to come with us." "All right," I said, keeping a straight face. "Let's see the warrant." He blinked. "You already got the notice?" "No," I said calmly. "The real one. Court issued, with a judge's signature." They froze. I could see the gears turning in their heads. "Well, the HOA board issued it," the tall one stammered. "Oh, the HOA board," I said, nodding slowly. "And does the HOA have the authority to make arrests?" They didn't answer. I let the silence stretch, then reached into my back pocket and pulled out my badge. Not plastic, not cheap, real, heavy. I held it up between two fingers. "See this?" I said quietly. "You two just tried to detain a federal officer." Their faces drained of color. One dropped his clipboard, the other took a step back. "I've got 2 questions," I said. "First, where's your authorization? Second, do you want to be charged with impersonating law enforcement before or after I run your names?" That was all it took. They ran like hell. I let them go. I wanted them to tell Karen what she'd done. That afternoon I ran their names through my contacts. They weren't real cops. They weren't even licensed security. Just a couple of wannabes hired by Karen through a fake security company. And the deeper I looked, the worse it got. Karen wasn't just power-hungry, she was running a full-blown scam. Fake citations, fake fines, fake warrants. Homeowners who didn't pay were harassed, threatened, even forced to sell their homes. Some actually lost them. And every case signed off by the same local magistrate, a judge who just happened to live in Oak Ridge Estates and had a long history of ruling in Karen's favor. She had a network, a little empire built on fear and forged paperwork. That's when I hit my breaking point. I remember sitting at my kitchen table staring at a pile of her letters. My house felt smaller, my yard quieter. I started wondering if it was even worth it. Maybe I should just pay the damn fines, move away, let her win. That's what everyone else had done. She'd worn them down, maybe she'd finally worn me down too. For a moment I actually felt powerless. I'd faced cartel hitmen, fugitives, violent offenders, but a woman with a clipboard had managed to crawl under my skin. Then I looked at my badge again, and I remembered who I was. I'd spent my whole career putting people like her behind bars, people who abused power, preyed on others. If I let her get away with this, I wasn't just giving up my peace. I was giving up my purpose. So I decided to turn the tables. I took her latest final notice and responded pretending to be scared. I wrote that I wanted to resolve this peacefully and was willing to attend an arbitration hearing. Karen took the bait instantly. She emailed me a summons for a mandatory HOA arbitration session. No courthouse, no legal address, just a rented community center. Perfect. I spent the next few days making calls to the local police, the district attorney, and the U.S. Attorney's Office. I told them everything. The fake arrests, the fraud, the extortion. We set the date. Friday afternoon. When I arrived at that community center, I wasn't nervous. Karen was already there, sitting at the head of a long table like a wannabe judge. She even had a little wooden gavel next to her clipboard. 3 board members sat behind her, trying hard to look official. 2 homeowners sat on the other side, both victims of her scams. They looked terrified. Karen looked thrilled. "Glad you could make it," she said, gesturing to an empty chair. I sat down slowly, smiling. Wouldn't miss it. She launched into her speech, reading off bogus violations, inflated fines, quoting made-up statutes. She kept using words like breach of contract and community infraction, trying to sound legal. But I wasn't listening to her words. I was watching her. The nervous tap of her pen, the way she kept glancing toward the door. She was stalling, waiting. I leaned back. "Let me guess," I said, cutting her off mid-sentence. Your HOA police are on the way to arrest me again." Her eyes flicked toward the entrance. That was all I needed. "Good," I said, standing up, "because I called a few people too." Right on cue, the doors burst open. Real officers flooded the room, and behind them the assistant U.S. attorney holding a thick folder of evidence. She stepped forward, voice steady. "Karen Whitmore, you are under arrest for fraud, extortion, impersonation of law enforcement, and conspiracy to commit wire fraud." Karen's face went white. "Wait, you don't understand." "Oh, we understand," I said, crossing my arms. "You tried to run a fake legal system out of a community hall and sent fake cops to my door. I think we're clear." The room exploded into chaos. The board members backed away, pretending they didn't know her. The other homeowners sat frozen. Karen shrieked as they cuffed her hands behind her back, her voice cracking. "This is a mistake. I was just enforcing the rules." But there were no rules left for her to hide behind. They let her out screaming, red and blue lights flashing through the windows. Later that week, the whole neighborhood erupted. News crews, reporters, everyone talking about it. Turns out I wasn't the only target. Dozens of homeowners came forward, fake liens, forged signatures, illegal evictions. Karen's HOA enforcement was an extortion racket built on threats and fear. Within a month, Oak Ridge Estates HOA was dissolved. The judge who'd helped her got investigated. The fake officers confessed. Karen herself faced multiple felony charges and real jail time. I never saw her again. Her house went up for sale, stripped of its power, just another quiet home on the street. Sometimes when I pass it on my morning runs, I catch myself smiling. Not because I won, but because justice did. Karen thought she was the law, but she never saw the real law coming for her.